Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Again, I bring back Dr. Ellis Whitehead. Today we're going to do a continuation from our first episode, which was talking about setting up PPC campaigns, the way that we kind of handle it in-house, etc. And so today we're going to look at optimization, maybe give some different insights and perspective on how we handle it and how the team handle it from a data science perspective, more so than, you know, your traditional Amazon seller or account manager perspective. So Ellis, welcome back to the show. How you doing?
Thanks, Danny. Doing well. You too?
Yep, all good, all good. So should we go straight in?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, so we'll pick up from a few key points from the last episode. We were talking about one part of it is on auto campaigns, having multiple auto campaigns in heavy negation. So part of the optimization process did start to unfold in that in the early days, yeah, because you're trying to bring down the campaign waste and start to shape it moving it forward. So if we were to start there as a base point, talk to me from your perspective, the way you look at optimizing campaigns, like your first thoughts, and then we'll start going into strategies and stuff.
Right. So there are several levers that we're looking at when we want to, when we're thinking about optimizing, or several targets. So you could target increasing sales, decreasing ACoS, increasing profit. And these are basically, I mean, of course, you can then go into details like increasing impressions or increasing conversion rate and things, but all those can be considered derivatives of these. So you either want to have more profit, more sales, or lower ACoS. And so if we're thinking about, like you had just mentioned, the negating terms in auto campaigns, so that's a part of reducing your ACoS.
Yeah.
And so how we think about negative keywords is really how we think about keywords. That is, what is the conversion rate of this particular keyword at a given, in a given placement. So top of search or a product placement or other search. And then you also have to consider that, you know, you have to have a certain bid level in order to get into these placements. And that the other search term placements, there's a difference between being middle of page and bottom of page. But just to keep it at a higher level, we're just looking at the conversion rate. And so if you see that you need to spend, you know, a lot of money to get top of search placement, and your conversion rate is not good enough to justify that spend, given your overall budget, then, you know, we're not going to be trying to spend that money for top of search. Now, the same exact thing applies for keywords that we're going to be negating. It's just that what we see is the conversion rate is simply going to be below whatever it is that what we need it to be at the level that we're bidding in a given auto campaign or broad campaign. And so if the conversion rate for these keywords is below what we need it to be to reach our budget targets, then we negate it. That's kind of abstract. Maybe I should give a concrete example. Let's say that you have product costs $20 and you have a $10 margin on it, and you have a great margin, say $10, just keeping the numbers round, and you have a conversion rate of 10%. Then if you want to have break even, then on average, you're going to get one sale every 10 clicks. So you could bid up to $1. Now, let's say you're running, and let's say the keyword again, like we had used the last time, was what was it, tea kettle. And so if you are running an auto campaign really aggressively, and you have, let's say, $2 bids in this, then what you know from your conversion rate on tea kettle is that it has a 10, let's say, on average, it has a 10% conversion rate. So it can only fit within your budget at $1 or below. That means for the $2 auto campaign, we're going to negate tea kettle because it falls below that level. And so you look at what are you bidding, what is the conversion rates of your keywords, and any keywords whose conversion rate is below what it needs to be for this particular bid to be profitable for you or to meet your targets, you negate that. And otherwise, you don't. And so that's the process that that we run every day.
Cool. And let's talk about the way that you look at things in terms of picking out main keywords in terms of for the bulk of your sales, in terms of
right.
Where do you start the point of optimization? Because some people may start very low in the cycle. There's a handful of sales and they get excited about those search terms, and then suddenly they roll them over and they become their main target search terms or keywords.
Right.
What do you do when you look at that in perspective of the time of year, the seasonality, all of those kind of things? And where do you go, okay, this has reached statistical significance. This is our base point to work from. Where do you come to that conclusion?
Well, we don't actually use, in a very technical sense, statistical significance very much. What we use are probabilities.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you have a 10% conversion rate, then the probability of having one sale in 10 clicks is maybe, I don't know, let's say 20%. I'm just picking this number off the top of my head. The probability of having no sales in 10 clicks is maybe 18%. And the probability of having 2 sales in 10 clicks is, also maybe 17% or something like that. And so we work with these percentages in deciding, each day or each week, depending on what we're updating, of what are we going to, how are we going to treat this keyword? And how are we going to treat our past data? Yeah. So how it is that we're either going to sort of, allow the algorithm to pursue all these different keywords, or we're going to go in and say ourselves, these are some keywords that we want to pursue. And these are 2 different processes. If we're looking at it from, like how we do it if we're going in manually ourselves, then what we're looking at are the brand analytics reports to get a sense for the popularity of the keywords. We're looking at the past PPC data. And we're looking at the competitors and where they're showing up in brand analytics and what they're, maybe we're looking at their listings too if we're doing some really, a lot of, manual inspection here. Yeah. And then we're going to try to figure out, well, by looking at these lists, there may be keywords that we're not getting yet that have higher volume. So there are all kinds of different approaches to PPC. Yeah. And a few of the successful ones can be, successful for different stores, can be really going after the main keywords heavily. And that's all you're focusing on. Another one can be going after long tail keywords and staying there because you're so niche, you're not going to be able to go up higher. And a third one is that you may know that you don't have super popular keywords that you can advertise on for any number of reasons. But one possibility is to try to build up your ranking on the long tail and medium tail keywords. And so what we're going to be, and sometimes if you do this, after getting enough of a buildup on these, you may be able to start also competing on the main keywords, depending on the product and the market. And so what we're looking at is not just what have you historically been getting or what do you have PPC history for getting sales on, but what keywords are your close competitors getting sales on that where these keywords have higher search volumes?
Yeah.
And so Amazon has very strong preferences for which SKUs it shows on different search terms. So if we want to start getting impressions, if we want to start entering into Amazon's, I don't know, I'll step back. I said it has very strong preferences. Has very strong preferences for high volume keywords.
Yes.
Does not have strong preferences for
lower. Yep.
Yeah. But for high volume keywords, it has very strong preferences. So if we want to start getting more impressions for those keywords, then we have to start going more aggressively after them. And that means bidding higher, but it also might mean looking at the listing and making sure that the listing is appropriate, set up correctly for these keywords. And and then we can try starting to get more of the impression share and click share for these stronger keywords. So that's part of, that's what we're looking at manually. Algorithmically, a different approach can be taken or is taken.
Yeah, and would you mind, expressing some of that? I know that it's quite high on a higher level. I know it's quite technical, but from our algorithmic point of view, give us some kind of cliff notes there.
Sure. So, we have the keywords that we've already seen work well for a product, and then we will go aggressively after broad matches on the keywords that work well.
Yeah.
And this tends to get us the majority of keywords that Amazon will kind of naturally provide us. Yeah. We're also doing the aggressive auto campaigns, right? Yeah. So anything that Amazon's willing to get us will come out of these aggressive auto and broad campaigns. That said, before, for higher volume keywords, Amazon isn't necessarily willing to give it to us unless we go, unless we really focus on it. And so this is the way that we get the long tail. We find the long tail and the medium tail. And so we then can start, after we get enough data on these, we build up the understanding of, there's a probability of in a given week of having, say, maybe I'll put it differently. Maybe there's like a 50% or 30% probability on a particular keyword in a given week of having a 10% conversion rate. So, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
30% probability of 10% conversion rate. That's really abstract. And maybe there's a 20% probability of it only being a 5% conversion rate that week. And, another 20% of it being 15%. And then, you have all these different probabilities there. And so
you're layering all the probability factors in like timeline events, would you say? Because you go 1 week, it's going to be 20% over 10, and then X, Y, Z on the other weeks as well.
Right. So it's, really we're only calculating these probabilities for the current week.
Right. Gotcha.
But looking back over the performance of previous weeks and months.
Yeah.
And and then based on this data, once we have passed a certain threshold of having enough data, then we'll start taking these keywords and integrating them not just into the broad campaigns, but into like our main exact match campaigns, and then we can track.
A quick question there. Going back to the original campaigns, 8 to 15, can't remember the exact amount. Well, what you're saying here is, as you're optimizing these, say you're taking from your auto campaign, are you bringing them in to the active exact campaigns that has some campaign history that's already been running?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay. That's what I want to get clarity on for the audience.
Yeah.
So
I said at one point, we don't use statistical significance, we use probability. We actually do use statistical significance in this case with regard to whether a keyword has enough, whether its history is enough to prove that it's worth bringing into an exact match campaign.
Yeah. So for overall, if someone's going to reverse this out and they're doing this for themselves, because obviously we're talking on a complex level and we're trying to reference back to the audience that are using campaign manager softwares, etc.
Right.
We're in this part of the cycle now. We've gone through the probability factors. Where should the everyday seller, brand owner, etc., where does that point come where they start to move these over? So are you saying they're existing broad and exact match campaigns, you're going to bring out of the auto campaigns and place them into campaigns with previous solid good campaign history, right?
Yes.
Cool. What happens if you're limited on the amount of campaigns that you've got, or you've got underperforming campaigns that don't have a great campaign history that have been running?
Right. If they don't have a great campaign history, there's no disadvantage to archiving them and starting over.
Yeah, starting over.
Well, except the work, of course, to set it up. But from Amazon's, what we see on the Amazon side, there's no disadvantage.
Yeah. Okay, that makes total sense. So let's go back quickly. Keywords that perform well for a period of time. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly they just drop like a stone and you just can't work out what's going on. How do you investigate that?
Well, it's a very good question, because this is one that does not, it's not something that you can automate, because it involves so many factors that, that are not among the data that Amazon's sending you. Yeah. So we'll look at a few things. One of them is we'll look at the trends in impressions, clicks, and conversion rate. And so what may have happened is that your impressions have dived. Yeah. And if the impressions have dived, then there are a number of possible causes of that. It could be that your competitors are bidding higher and you're just not winning the auction enough. So that's the most likely one if you have a dive in impressions. Another is that Amazon, you might not be, Amazon might have flagged for one reason or another, or blocked your listing from advertising on these keywords. Another one is that you had a lower conversion rate for a period of time, and Amazon now likes the other competitors which had a higher conversion rate better. This is most likely to happen with high volume keywords where Amazon develops very strong preferences. And let's see, that's what comes to mind off the top of my head. And of course,
on the front end, you're going to check whether the review scores drop, etc. You get a run of bad reviews, or someone upvotes loads of 1 stars, some black hat taking place.
Yeah, so that's what I would look at when we see the drop in conversion rate. Yeah. So if it's a drop in impressions, then I'd look at the things I mentioned. Auction. Yeah, if it's a drop in the conversion rate, then I'd be looking at the listings and at the competitors. So, we would open up we do a search on Amazon and see what's showing up there. Yeah. And, from our evaluation, how do our products, our clients' products, how do they compare to what the other products that are showing up? And from there, it can be any number of things. It could be that you have a bunch of competitors have come in with cheaper prices, better images. Maybe your images have been overwritten by, some hack We've seen that before. And we've also seen it before where Amazon just, okay, but this was an impression thing where they just wouldn't let us advertise that SKU on things. And
what, the SKU or the search terms wouldn't appear for that SKU?
I think we've seen both, but for a particular search term, that was a long time ago. Yeah. So I don't know that would still be relevant.
Gotcha. So now we've kind of covered that. We've gone around and discussed many many of the factors. Let's talk about where we've gone from discovery, and we've been doing discovery. Then we've kind of been aggressive in some of the campaigns. Where does the point come when discovery is done, and you move to that phase of either maintenance or you're going into the aggressive side with exact match?
Right. So from an algorithmic side, there is no difference between discovery and long tail keyword advertising on long tail keywords. Yeah. From an algorithmic side. So from a business side, however, it's going to be a matter of how much of your budget are you willing to spend. So in the beginning, you're perfectly willing to accept, say, a higher ACoS, and later you're not. Yeah. And depending on these like ACoS targets, that just might change your bids and the number of negative keywords that are being put into the campaigns. But algorithmically, it's exactly the same thing. Yeah. And the kind of from a practical campaign manager side, the discovery has basically ended once you see fewer keywords, once you're not really getting many new keywords that you can move over into the exact campaigns. We don't move all good keywords from out of like the broad and auto campaigns into our exact match campaigns. Right. The reason is because we want, like, if a keyword is only getting one sale a week, then we can't know what its bid should be because it's going to vary so much by week. I mean, it doesn't get one sale a week. It gets one sale 1 week, another week it gets none, another week it gets 4, another 2 weeks it gets none. So
but you're doing it on aggregation,
So what we do then is so you can't get good data for that. Like we had said once, you would have to collect data for so long to know what the conversion rate is, that by the time you have enough data, the market conditions would have changed and your data's partially irrelevant. It's outdated. Yeah. And so what we do is for all of these long tail keywords, we group the data into the appropriate broad match keyword or keywords. And by aggregating that together, we can get good data about the conversion rate of a broad match keyword. Yeah. And then we have good control over it. And so that's part of why it is that like I said, from an algorithmic side, discovery is no different from long tail keyword advertising. But of course, at some point you stop seeing new keywords.
Makes total sense.
So you don't actually stop seeing new keywords. There are always new ones coming in.
Yeah, but it's like at the very beginning, the volume generally depends on market conditions, marketplace, and I mean we could even start talking about long tail in Europe versus US, which is almost non-existent in some cases. But that could be a completely different conversation. Yeah. So maintenance. So we now got to that stage. We've done aggressive. We worked out what we're doing in terms of what the audience is going to be doing in terms of their campaigns. You want to reach maintenance. I think one of the tricky things that people get to is that when is maintenance mode due? It's like, when do you come out of discovery? When you stop being aggressive? Because a lot of people's arguments is, well, I'll go aggressive and I'll basically break even or I'll lose a bit on the sale itself, not from its takeaway, because it's sale itself. because I want to maintain rankings and that kind of stuff. So let's talk about in isolation now, get into maintenance mode. What does that look like when you've done all your testing, you've done discovery? What does that look like?
So there are two parts to it. When things are running smoothly, it's just about keeping up on the negative keywords and and adapting the bids to the gradual increasing costs of advertising. And from then you have the business decisions as you see your ACoS gradually increasing because the competition is increasing or whatever, that at some point you might be reaching this like threshold where you're not going to bid enough to say have top of search placement. And then you have to decide, okay, do I want to go over my initial targets for certain keywords? And so that's then a part of the maintenance of the business maintenance of PPC advertising. Another one is we saw across almost all clients a significant increase in ACoS in October. And this, I believe, has to do with three phenomenon coming together. One of them is changes that Amazon made to their advertising, such that there was in some categories at some times a lot more ads being shown. And so your ad budget, when you were being shown, it was being kind of more watered down, the impact. Another is that we saw this last year as well. October was not the great month that it used to be in previous years. And people are waiting. And it could be that in part they're waiting for Black Friday. And so there's a drop in conversion rate. And another thing is people are coming in knowing, oh, Q4, this in previous years, not last year, but in previous years, this is, I need to start advertising now. And so you have more competitors and higher bids. And so this is just part of, things are constantly changing. And part of maintenance is deciding, what do I want to do about this? Do I need to adapt my budgets? And if so, for which SKUs and do I want to raise them so that I'm not dropping out of the
ad auction?
Yeah, the ad auction, thank you. Or, do I want to drop it because the conversion rates are worse right now anyway? So this is part of maintenance as well, that you have to, look at this, I think once a month, depending once a week, once a month is a good cycle for looking at these things and making these kinds of decisions.
Makes sense. And then there's the elephant in the room is, obviously you kind of alluded to this. I've mentioned this on the show before. Cost per clicks go up every year. So, you could have last year's maintenance mode could be different to this year's maintenance mode because inherently the competition in your category, suddenly your cost per clicks go up. What are you doing in that situation? You want people to avoid panic and stuff like that. But it's a mathematical thing, isn't it? Before your landed costs don't suddenly change in line with your advertising costs going up, right. So there's only so much headroom. Talk to me about how people should be able to deal with that and handle the incoming aspect of, clicks are getting more expensive overall.
Right. So there are a handful of approaches. One of them, of course, is raising your price. And we've seen this can be a very effective approach. Because if you raise your price, it doesn't necessarily, you may be raising your profits. Of course, you're likely to get fewer sales, but you might then be in a position to advertise much better. And if you have good reviews, then that could be an effective place for you. Because with cost of click increasing, that means that the cost of click, of course, is increasing for your competitors as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the first thing. Raise your prices. I mean, I'm not saying it's the best thing, but it's just, one of the most obvious ones. Another one is to totally stop advertising on the high cost keywords. And this can be effective as well. Yeah. We find that, you can certainly find that for some things you don't need to advertise and can still be profitable with it. I mean, have enough sales, your profits can be good, so that's fine. You can go for advertising instead of top of search, for example. You can try advertising on competitors' products where they are better ranked. Perhaps, they don't have to be better ranked, but let's say where they are getting enough impressions, but in one way or another, your product compares favorably to that one. So we have a client in a very competitive niche who gets a good 1/3 of his sales through advertising on competitors with much higher sales volume, and he has good sales volume from that. Let's see. Another one is to accept the increasing costs and to just play with it, to go along with it, especially if your ACoS is rising and still within your margin. That might make plenty of sense. So at least you're not losing money. That's what comes to mind at the moment. I'm sure that
that's quite a few. That's quite a good few strategies. So if we're going to wrap here, give me 3 or 4 things like what we talked about today are like really important factors. We've discussed this, moving from, into maintenance, or going from your discovery into aggressive if required and into maintenance mode. Give me 3 or 4 takeaways.
Let's see. So one point then for the discovery part of it is it can be very useful to go aggressive and in order to gather the data more quickly.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you don't have to just burn through money. You can set your budgets at a level that stops you from burning through too much money a day, and go aggressive on negating. But if you're doing that, maintain your negative keywords.
Yeah.
So both remove and add. The discovery process does not need to be too much different from the long tail keyword process, and for us, it's not different at all from a technical perspective. You can get, depending on your product, that can be a very good, those campaigns can be very profitable, the long tail ones. Because these are long tail keywords, if you're going aggressively, you may well be able to bid much higher than your competitors as long as you have good, as long as you keep your negative keywords up to date in there. Yep. The market, so in maintenance, market conditions are constantly changing. So it's the changes are on the Amazon side. They're changing their algorithms. They're changing the number of SKUs that are being shown. The number of competitors is basically always increasing. The competitors' prices, there are always cheaper ones coming in, and so you need to be looking at this on I would say approximately a monthly cycle. To see, do I need to make changes in my pricing? Do I need to make changes in my budgets for, still staying in the advertising game or dropping them to just take profit?
Yep, makes total sense. Cool. Well, look, let's leave that there. Thank you for coming in, guys. If you are looking to get your PPC managed, feel free to give us a shout, danny@databrill.com, or go to sellersessions.com/agency or sellersessions.com/ case-studies. You'll see some of our work there. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you again in the next few days. And Ellis, I look forward to bringing you back. Take care.
Thank you very much.